Oh my goodness, we're live. Oh, I heard your keyboard there, Niels.
Yes.
Yes, you did. Okay, so we're going to go live here on what platforms you want? We're on LinkedIn. If you're watching us there, welcome. We are also on, I think, Facebook and possibly something else. I don't know, YouTube, maybe. I think possibly
On YouTube, certainly, yes.
Yeah, YouTube, and we are for the first time going live on Instagram right now. So.
But not on Telegram.
Not on Telegram. You can't. You can't live stream to Telegram. Apparently, I would have tried, but then again, there you go.
No, we don't want to be on the prisoners platform.
The prisoners platform. I
the,
know.
the
There's
boss,
another discussion.
The boss of Telegram was imprisoned in France. Did you hear?
Oh, so this is again I should say a revelation of my relative ignorance to the global news landscape. So
okay.
I did not know that. Oh, so the topic for today, again, welcome to all of those of you and welcome you. We had talked last week after we landed our last session, the Fears the Mind Killer session, was about wanting to go into more of the solution space. And how does this happen? And we don't want to be tools, thank you, John Seddon, right? Now, tool heads. But there are questions about how does this stuff happen? And you brought that up here. I wanted to know from you first, where did that come from and where would you like to take that conversation today?
Oh, excellent question. I think I suggested this because I mean we are close to doing the 50th episode here with BetaCodex Live. So of course sometimes I keep, as you probably do, sometimes I keep looking back and looking, what kind of topics did we cover? Has there been a balance? Has there been enough of a balance between the general and the specific, the practical and the theoretic, the criticism and the solution oriented and all these things? Did we cover enough ground and the right ground? And so and on the other hand, we have our current client here in Germany doing transformation. It's the second client this year doing transformation with us. So we have the pleasure of being a master of ceremonies of an open space beta chapter with a client right now, and helping our friends from Argentina also pulling open space beta off for the first time with a client in Latin America. So I thought, we shouldn't just talk, in abstract terms about beta or alpha, bashing silly tools and silly stuff or demystifying stuff. We should also talk about the practicalities. And of course, the main practicality is how does beta transformation happen? How is it done? Why aren't more people doing it?
Yeah.
Why isn't the media full of this? Because to me it's like the grand solution, something that Mary Parker Follett dreamt of 100 years ago, I suppose, and many others too. So so I thought, why not talk about the possibility of doing transformation with your own organization or with clients, like for everyone.
Yeah. And this may be, just thinking about this, what is a pattern? What is the kind of the pattern before the patterns? What patterns are there that afford the opportunity for a beta transformation to happen, right? So there's certainly the pattern of sponsorship connecting with the idea and saying, I really, really, really want it. But that may not be the only way that the sponsor will just hear something from you or from me or from whoever out there in the world, that the potential would be there. I think for folks who are beta literate and willing to talk about beta in their own organization and spread the word from within. And that's, again, one theory that I have. And your screen was stopped for a moment. So I think you're back.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, that's okay. Yeah. But option one is call Niels, get on the phone with Niels, have a meeting, and then magic happens. Right? That's one way for transformation to happen. The other way is just the second way.
Yeah, or they could call you.
Or well, yes, of course. I did say that, but I think your video calls from it. They call you, call me, call one of our other associates in the field. The other thing would be for those who have engaged with the material, either a master class or a quick start or something like that, will be in the organization, be witnessing alpha patterns and say, I want this to be different, and who is there with me, and how do I wouldn't say influence, maybe that is being the influencer, to be a voice of change in an alpha organization. That to me sounds like a valid pattern. Is it?
So
that's the question. Is that a valid pattern?
No, but isn't that the same pattern? Somebody wants to change things. Somebody's unhappy with the way, the alpha way that things are going, and then they look for help, or they might start working around it, looking for solutions, finding out about beta. Maybe first trying other stuff that doesn't work, which is a classic.
Yeah,
losing a few years or decades. All of that is. I wonder if there are different patterns. I think ultimately the pattern is about somebody being unhappy with alpha and looking for a beta solution, one way or another. And of course, nobody has to work with me or with you. They can do it. I mean, if people figure out open space beta, they will figure out that it's how powerful the approach is, and probably they might figure out that some level of help is good, not too much help. It's not like childcare. So you do not need tons of agile coaches or advisors to do this, but a master of ceremony is a good idea. So that kind of insight will the idea. I will move into half back. So yeah, there must be some kind of insight, and there must be some kind of willingness to transform, right? At some point.
Yeah.
Find your way to the sponsor. I think that's the sum up of the story, isn't it?
That's exactly the sum of the story. It's the seeking the authority who will run with you towards beta and run away. Well, not run away, but to dissolve the alpha patterns that are there. So
yeah, I mean, let's say open space beta may not be the only way to get this done. We have described a leaner approach for small companies. And of course, there might be other viable approaches which I do not know about. So, but I think currently the question is not so much, or I wonder what's keeping people from doing beta, right? Because the topic of this session is how to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's this underlying question: why are not more people figuring it out or doing it right now?
So that's the thing, because in the title of the episode, well, if you know the why I want to do it, because I want, whatever the I is, decentralization, democratization, federalization, all that kind of stuff, and I know what is there. Okay, cell structure design, relative targets, open space beta is the way. And knowing the principles and doing the reading, if someone has all the information available to them and they have a desire to do it,
yes.
Well, what's in the way? Is that kind of what I'm hearing this question?
Yeah. And that's the main focus of this session, of course. What is in the way? Nothing is in the way. It's just probably understand. It's probably important to understand that beta transformation is viable. That it is fast, and this is not bullshit. These things I'm talking about. It is possible. It is very fast. It doesn't require much help. It requires little help, as I just mentioned. And it may seem impossible to most to do that kind of organizational transformation. but it isn't impossible. I mean, I'm not sure about you. I get some newsletters from other people in our field or groups or movements that offer splendid courses and trainings.
Yeah.
What do you receive, for example?
Well, I see everything all the time. Go to a seminar, go get the information.
Yeah.
In whichever LinkedIn group. I get
I
emails
receive
from different
newsletters from Corporate Rebels, for example, or from the SEMCO people.
EODF.
EODF, of course. Yes, I was a member, and yeah.
And you'll see
the Ricardo Semler people here. How is it called? SEMCO way of doing things. That's a beta organization. Sure. And of course, there are other people in Germany. There are people who call themselves Intrinsify Me and so on. Yeah. So I know some of these people personally, like Aaron Dignan and so on as well. So I get all these news, these product offerings. Well, the Ready, exactly. The Ready. Yes, that's Aaron. Yeah. Hello, Aaron.
And Sam. Hello, Sam.
And all that is splendid. Of course, they're doing great work. However, I think none of it is closely related to actual transformation. Yes.
I was going to guess is why you say that, but my guess is that it's still assuming an alpha frame. It's still assuming authoritarian relationships.
I think pretty much everyone still assumes that transformation is impossible.
And how big of a transform? Do I want to transform my IT or optimize? I think we talked about optimize versus transform.
Yes, but there might be the illusion still that optimization suffices. I can optimize my bit or piece of the organization, my area, my department, my business also, or my group, and that will suffice. There might be other. I would call it illusions, but it's not meant as an offense. Many might be under the illusion that hero leaders, you as a hero or lighted leader, might be the solution, so that you have to learn. A course will suffice. A safari. Not sure if that's.
We've talked about going. So let me go to Toyota, see how Toyota does it, and
visit
I will then do the Toyota way.
Visit some awkward beta organization, get inspired, get touched by the gods of beta or the gods of self-organization, or however you call it, the gods of teal, and that will change everything. But it doesn't, And the course offerings do not change anything either. Of course, they might help you us individually to understand things, to learn theories, concepts, and so on, and that's great. However, that doesn't make transformation happen. I sometimes wonder if we are the only ones who really aspire to the real transformation. Of course, on the other hand, there are the consultants, the org designers, which is impossible to design an organization.
But isn't that what does org design look like? What does it rhyme with? I mean, we're talking about transforming the relationships all within the people within an organization to fulfill a different purpose in a different way. If not design, what is that?
I think this is the fine line between truth and bullshit. To admit that, of course, there is such a thing as an org design. You can look at an organization and it has design, but we cannot design an organization. I think that's very important to understand, that we cannot design an organization. So you can do org design work, but you are never an org designer.
Okay, that it's not it's if I'm taking my hands on the clay of this organization.
Exactly, it's not exactly. Organizations are not made of clay; they're made of human communication, which is complex. So nobody designs that.
Yeah.
Of course, there is an org design. If we might say that self-structure design is an org design concept, but we do not design that design or the organization. I mean, we help organizations figure out this. The structures and the principles for themselves and the solutions then. But we are not org design. I would never say such a thing, at least. Of course, people today say all kinds of hilarious things. So I do not get offended by people calling themselves org designers. I would never say such a thing. But of course, beta transformation brings about a different kind of org design. That's true.
We're advocates for an approach to organizational system. So again, I think I'm kind of getting pedantic about the words. I mean, who cares what you call it? It is intervening in a current system of work and endeavoring to make those what were the nodes of that network. Again, we have a language for what this organization is. It is nodes of a network. And what are the relationships between those, and how do they work better? And it's organizational intervention. I don't know. The design is you take a snapshot, right?
We flip the system and we look what happens before we flip the system. We look with the client, or the client must look at what
so it's a design intervention, but it is not I am designing.
Exactly. Okay. You do nobody has ever designed an organization, but we apply org design principles or design principles to organizations, or help clients do that, and so on. Yeah. But I didn't want to go into that too deeply. What I wanted to hint at is that the industry, so to speak, is divided between people who I think offer learning courses, training, and so on, qualification, and of course also entertainment and diversion, the safaris and stuff. And then the other part of the industry is saying that they consult, that they intervene. But none of the two groups, I think, is actually supporting serious transformation. I do not see that in the market. So I wonder why not more people are looking at open space beta, at the BetaCodex as as a set of principles, of course, but also as open space beta to get transformation done. I think it should be of great interest to most people, and it kind of internal organization. I mean, in organizations, managers, executives, business owners, and so on should be interested, and consultants. And I think that today one of the things that lacking is the acknowledgement that beta transformation is really possible. Maybe it all goes back to the old Douglas McGregor thing. My people aren't there yet.
Well, think about how widespread Theory X thinking is.
Exactly.
And that
it is very widespread, right?
Well, because the whole point of compensation and incentivization is based on this idea that if I don't put a bag of money in front of someone, they won't do whatever it is. And definitely, for sure as shit, they won't do whatever I tell them to do, right? The only way I can get my way is by dangling the money and telling them to do it. There's nothing about that approach is invitational. Nothing about that recognizes the dignity and intelligence and the innate beauty and wonder of the human spirit. None of that. So I think that, however you would want to frame it, that's a paradigm shift, right? So for me, if I'm viewing the world of Theory X, and I think, what does it take to move one's worldview or paradigm shift to Theory Y thinking, and that's one part of the whole system, because it's not just one thing. You can't just flip it. You can't read Human Side of Enterprise and say, I have the answer to life, the universe, and everything. No.
I think the solution is in recognizing that is, let's say, a user of Theory X thinking, or mistaken, fooled by Theory X beliefs, and then transformation is imminent immediately. Once you recognize that people are everybody in your organization, everybody in our client organizations are Theory Y people, then transformation is almost inevitable. I think that's really what's holding us back.
Well, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you have that insight, you cannot just cover. Well, maybe you could lie to yourself and just cover over that insight. Just do that, but put your head in the ground.
Certainly, that's the blocker. That's also why I think the Safari things is happening. I have to go visit some marvelous company to see the solutions there. The drive to do that comes from the belief that my own people do not have it in them. It's an escapist.
Ooh, boy,
thing.
that hurts. That hurts, doesn't it?
Yes, sadly. I mean, this is a tough conversation.
No, it's
Right?
a dangerous conversation,
And
right?
we do not have exactly. You love dangerous conversations. I heard
I do.
on your other podcast conversations, and I mean that's and of course we do not have to agree. This we are reasoning and reflecting about, how does this really work? Why should organizations do it? What keeps them from doing it? How does it work? And I think the one main factor is to believe that your people are theory Y people, and then nothing can stop you in principle. Then the only other problem is, okay, if I start believing in that everybody is theory Y in my organization or at my clients, then of course a second realization would be, okay, then I cannot torture them to death with to brain death with OKRs or other Taylorist crappy tools, right? So I should not torture them with a Spotify model or matrix structures or agile frameworks or whatever other shit is there, or flight levels or whatever other crap. If they are theory Y beings, I should liberate them. I should create the conditions for people to strive at work and not just strive in their private lives. So yeah, okay, we create this condition. So there's a second factor then that would be, okay, how do I do that? How do I change the organization? How do I transform it so that it doesn't take years or decades until my organization maybe dies or goes bankrupt or whatever.
Or I get sick of it and go somewhere else. That's like
yes. And if you're a company owner, you cannot go somewhere else easily, so you have to sell the company also. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So of course there are several conditions or several problems. The insight that people are theory Y, I think that's the key insight. That's the key driver. I wonder. No, I do not wonder why that doesn't happen more often. I always so often in my keynotes I do this exercise on theory X and theory Y in the room with the post-its. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Oh, I've seen real. I recall that. How many people think how many people are theory X in your organization?
Yes, and of course, when I started this 15 years ago to do this kind of exercise, I wondered how long can I do this?
Maybe you should see, because I've seen it, I remember it, but I'm not articulating it very. What is the exercise that you?
The exercise is that I asked the room. Everybody has two post-its, two different colors, maybe yellow and pink. So I asked people to write on the yellow post-it or the pink post-it. I asked people to write, okay, if you look inside yourself, if you look inside your heart, what kind of person are you? Theory X or theory Y? Self-motivated or as somebody who needs to be extrinsically motivated? I explained theory Y and theory X and theory Y by McGregor before. I usually project that on the wall, and so I asked them, okay, look inside your heart. What kind of person are you? Yeah. Of course, everybody writes down a Y on the paper. Of course, yes. So then I asked them, okay, now think about second post-it, the yellow one. Think about people in your organization or people in your client organizations, whatever applies to you. What percentage of within that group is theory Y people? Or no, I did it wrong, right?
It's the other way.
Theory X. What is the percentage of X's in your organization? And the percentage should be 0, but it isn't. And then I check that afterwards. I ask people to first to switch the post-its and then to hold up their evaluations. And of course, almost nobody, close to nobody, assumes that nobody else is theory X. There are very few exceptions in large rooms. Sometimes I do this with 500 people or 600 people. Very few people think that everybody else is theory Y people, that no theory X's exist. Very few. So that is it demonstrates that all that we're doing, the training, the learning, the education, the certification, and the edutainment, and also the consulting work, it's still based on the assumption that we're doing this for organizations full of theory X assholes, which do not exist. Right?
Idiots
assholes
or
exist,
whatever.
but not theory X people. They do not exist. Yeah, according to McGregor and according to anybody enlightened enough to think like Viktor Frankl or anybody else, and we have preached this over and over. Theory X people do not exist, but as long as we suspect that they exist, that they manifest in our organization, that people are the problem, we will not be able to pull off any beta transformation. Yeah. So one of the secrets is to believe that people are why. People.
And it's a, and
obstructed by alpha bullshit organization.
Well, right? You said it a few times in there, and I think this also goes right back to the theme of the episode. It's I believe it can happen. I believe that you are an intrinsically motivated person, that you don't require me to motivate you, which in and of itself is pretty terrible. I'm going to motivate you to do something, right? It's like I'm pushing you. No, yes. If I believe, and if enough, I guess enough, how many is enough? Enough people with authority to gather the funding to make a transformation occur, to sponsor a transformation. If enough people believe that and are in integrity with that belief and behave as if they believe that way, it's like, well, no, okay, we're not going to do fixed targets. Okay, we're not going to do that anymore. All that stuff, that is not part of who I believe we can be. And so, but that, I mean, this is a touchy thing. It's touchy to say, okay, all right, so I'm in an alpha organization. I have authority. I have all the power in the world. And oh, well, what's to stop you, Mr. Fantastic person on top of the mountain, from just splitting once you sprinkle all this fairy dust on us? So, and that is the thing that's important, to have that commitment, to take responsibility for it, and to walk the talk. So, and that's at least as I think, that's about the only way that can happen. Sure. Is you have to show the integrity, and not just one person, right? I mean, everything starts with one person, but it is people who are doing this with each other, for each other, because ta-da, they believe this is the way, as they say in The Mandalorian, right? That's the way forward. It is the best way to engage with complexity. It is the most humane way to be in a large group of people in relationship with one another, i.e. an organization.
Sure.
All right, so that's it. We're done. No, we turn it off. We're over.
No, well, I think the second thing is of the how. The how. I think the first side of how is an appropriate understanding of human nature, which we just discussed, right? Theory of why thinking. Once you have that, I think you will. Anybody, who starts to understand that people are intrinsically motivated. Everybody in this world is intrinsically motivated. Even the biggest assholes in the world are intrinsically motivated, are theory why people. Once you grapple with that idea, once you once you play with it, you figure out that so many things about organizational development, change management, and so on cannot work. You might understand that the principles that Beta offers are succinct, that they are to the point, and that they match these assumptions about human nature and complexity and so on. And then the question is, okay, how do I do the change for my clients? Maybe I stop, as a consultant, I will stop doing agile toolism. And maybe as an executive, I will stop doing OKRs and the usual change management stuff and the usual preaching and strategy management and so on. Or I will throw toss the canvases out of the window that help nothing, and then I will look for approaches, organizational development approaches. This very recently, right? Open space beta and very fast organizational transformation. Those are recent ideas, recent concepts, only 6 years old.
Yeah, and these the other tools that we're talking about, those are small t tools, right? Those are so there are certain situations where, again, Scrum works here. You can apply a canvas in this situation to make to better understand some situation. I think it's one thing to say but to use this tool, like to say this is the one tool, safe transformation, that's going to turn the whole thing, to turn it all around, and this is it. And that there's a deeper, more fundamental transformation and a way of thinking and a way of being that we're talking about. These are the conditions for those other interventions on a smaller scale to work more effectively. That once then again, we don't have to agree, of course, right? But it is. And I think Stefan Viluda had said that a long time ago. I think this is the article. You can only be agile in beta.
Yes.
It's only possible.
Yes.
But why is that? Because it is an environment where the belief, again, it's the basic belief in human nature is that we are all individually strong, capable, responsible beings. So I feel like I continue to hit that one over the head. There's some more pieces of this how to make it happen puzzle.
Yes,
I think
true. Some methods cannot by themselves contribute to transformation or pull off transformation. For example, with Scrum, as we have seen, it is not possible to transform an organization. It's just too focused on software development teams, and it never said it was anything different, right? And the team, okay, you can connect the teams. That's not impossible. I wonder why people try to deploy agile frameworks which are overly process oriented and command and control oriented, I think. But let's put that aside for a moment. There are methods that are let's say that can be used in a transformation. In a beta transformation, you can deploy Scrum, and you can have teams adopting or continuing to use or perfecting Scrum, of course. But by itself, those tools will not help organizations transform away from waterfall or command and control to something different. It's impossible, because there are so many let's say the scope isn't there. The Scrum is too specific, too narrow in a way. It is not about organizational development at all. It's about really software development techniques.
It's an iterative product development. It started, again, many of those, and there's several of the approaches out there that could be applied to how do we, an organization, develop our product more effectively, faster. How big is that product? Is it how far scoping is it? But is this product development focus? And that's not even, and it's because I guess maybe since this happened, in 2001 or so, now we can talk about lean, maybe how that happened in a different way at another time, probably. But is that because software is eating the world, that the software teams have become the tip of the spear in that way? Wow. Now we have to. Well, now we have to. Yes,
we want to be sexy. That's what Scrum is saying. We want to be sexy.
That it's, and then of course now that sexy ain't sexy anymore. And that's unfortunate.
But there, we might say there are other tools out there that have a bigger scope, an organizational-wide scope, and they fail to achieve anything, right? Let's take open space, even, which is a wonderful approach, but open space alone will not transform anything either. I mean, we use it in open space beta twice for a reason. We use it as part of the thing. As an engagement model, as Daniel Mesick says. We use it to combine it with the concept of invitation and authorization for good reason. But open space alone doesn't have a transformational power either, right? It can very well be abused for entertainment reasons. That's when it becomes a feeble bar camp or feeble discussion.
Well, if you don't have any energy, passion, diversity of opinion, it's just a way to get a lot of people together and be really close in relationship with one another, but we're not talking about getting shit done. I mean, that's
exactly.
Point.
It hardly ever got used for organizational development purposes, I think, foolishly. So it's tools alone are not the solution for sure. We need approaches that, as we keep explaining, that are time boxed, that are inviting, not coercive, that invite everybody to pass through this rite of passage all at once.
What I'm trying to
Take
think
the
of
whole
something. I'm trying to think of some other piece, some keystone other than theory X and theory Y thinking that basically, I mean, there's that if you have that the belief, if you say, okay, I understand now, which is not something that happens in 30 minutes. You know, it's something that to change one's belief takes a long time. But if you start there, then you get into the other bits. Oh, well, I have to have an individual manager. Again, has to have control over the team. Then we get into the okay, right. So if you believe theory Y, yes, you will behave in that way. But to support that theory Y thinking, well, there was someone several decades before Douglas McGregor, Mary Parker Follett, who was doing this with each other for each other work. So I think bringing Douglas McGregor to the fore and making sure that that's a foundational belief of when you engage in organizational behavior intervention, and also to say, well, there's another way to be together and to get work done in an organization that didn't start with Henry Ford and Frederick Taylor. While that was great for that time, and that was an intervention that was needed in that time for that purpose, along that same time, there were other interventions like bringing the work of Mary Parker Follett to the fore and integrating, doing the reading. I mean, we're talking about understanding these concepts. I think that's a how. That's you. If you don't know the what,
Yes.
if I have no idea that I'm supposed to read McGregor or Mary Parker Follett or read Ron Percy's book
The 7-Day
Semler's book.
Weekend, which is wonderful too. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's again, this is part of the purpose of the BetaCodex Live that we're doing, is to provide that guide. This is a guide into this way of thinking and being.
Yes.
That you can go there.
Ultimately, we want to invite people to do this,
right?
To dare.
Yeah.
To dare do beta transformation, and maybe if I may repeat, we had pretty much no clue how beta transformation worked. Let's say 16 years ago when we founded the BetaCodex network, we had some hunches, some ideas, but we never had
method
done beta transformation for a client full-fledged, within a reasonable period of time. Now we have done this with OpenSpace Beta. It's finally possible, not just because of OpenSpace Beta, also because of we have better insight into other elements of the transformation, like cell structure design, organizational hygiene, change as flipping, and so on. So we have gathered a lot of insight. Now I like to say that we now see all the pieces of the puzzle, which Mary Parker Follett or Douglas McGregor or Kurt Lewin and others didn't see. They didn't have all the pieces. So even though they had all the main ideas about beta and self-organization and power with versus power over, as Mary Parker Follett explained, she certainly didn't have all the consulting methods or the transformational methods at her disposal that we now have.
Yeah.
So this is not because people in this age are smarter than 100 years before. I think that Mary Parker Follett was probably smarter than all of us together. But nonetheless, we now have a little bit. There is more science around organization development for sure.
And
more insight about how to, for example, OpenSpace. I think it has proven very, very useful. It's very simple, and it only came up in the 1980s, so it has been a very useful addition to. It wasn't easy, too obvious for me how to use it properly in organizational development. We used it. I used it with circa the first time, I think 20 years ago or so, 16, 17 years ago, to be exact. But to use it twice, for example, that was a main insight. To time box the change, that I think is a very fresh insight that wasn't available at the time. So time boxing change, time boxing transformation. How to articulate decentralization. We just weren't capable of doing that as precisely as we know. I mean, the poster that you have behind your head, that's a very specific articulation of beta. I think it makes the beta much more understandable. Makes it seem less esoteric as well, which is important, because we never wanted to make this seem abstract, fluffy.
And I'm wondering too, just as you were talking and thinking about that, I'm trying to make sure we can see this poster.
Yeah, I just gave a hint, right? Everybody can look it up. www.cellstructuredesign.com. There's all this stuff.
Also the idea of, well, the world wasn't ready for Mary Parker Follett when she came around.
I think that's bullshit. Do you like that hypothesis?
Well, I would say, I didn't say necessarily that. I would say she's one woman before her time, maybe, because
I do not like that either. I read about this. I read something very a lovely book. I could look it up. It's right behind me by two women academics. I do not know their names right now, and they kind of counter-argue. They argue that these taggings, a woman before her time, the world wasn't.
A woman can't do it, right? That kind of
exactly. What's behind it is something.
It's the same paternalist kind of thing.
Exactly. It's repeating the paternalist patterns, and it's hard. When I read that, I thought, oh my god, that's wow. It's a tough insight, I think, right?
Yeah.
A woman before her time, and then she was too much ahead of her time. Well, that's belittling people,
Yeah. And also kind of
what if we say that her contributions were probably diminished by her contemporaries, and especially afterwards in the 1950s and 60s, that even grandiose people like Peter Drucker argued that no, she cannot have been discriminated just because she was a woman, and she was discriminated because she was just a woman. Yeah. Academically, in her existence, economic existence in her career, she was severely discriminated. She couldn't even do a doctorate at Harvard. She couldn't be a professor at Harvard Business School or anywhere else because that wasn't allowed. So to say that women were discriminated at the time is just hilarious.
Well, the systemic. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the systemic forces were stacked against her. I mean, the system as it was constructed. Again, we're talking very specifically. She couldn't get into Harvard, which was a place where that's where that thought bullshit.
And these are just the obvious things that we can nail down. There must have been 100 forces at work that were discriminating towards women. Including probably editors and publishers and so on. But that's not the main point. My main point would be at the time, Mary Parker, in her writings, Mary Parker Follett mentions companies that were, we cannot be sure, of course, pretty beta at least. Denison is a name that comes up, company owner Denison or some retail company. I think Denison is the name. I'm not quite sure, but she mentions a retail company or two, other organizations as well, and philosophers who had this kind of thinking, beta kind of thinking. So to say that she was ahead of her time, it's not correct. It's not true. I think it's better, more appropriate to say there was a niche where these ideas resonated at the time, and that niche kept existing, but it's still a niche. Yeah. So is beta already dominating the world? Sadly not. Alpha still seems to be the standard, perceived as the standard model of organizing. That will end at a certain point because of the forces of complexity. But so
do you think organizational life just isn't bad enough yet? Do you think that the pain is just not there? It's okay. It's okay to print money hand over fist. We will continue to do that in a coercive and inhumane way for as long as possible until the whole ship blasts on fire and sinks.
But that assumes that people are aware of alpha and beta and are looking at their suffering and say, no, we're not suffering enough to try the transformation. And I think that's wrong.
I think that's wrong too.
Okay.
What I believe is that just,
and we don't have to agree.
No, but that's true. I mean, that there's, I think there's, it is the, for lack of, it's the ignorance, the fact that I don't even know there's a better way out there.
Exactly. I only know alpha. I know 50 Shades of Alpha, and I'm trying to get to another way of mental masturbation and so in alpha, and another shade of suffering. But I'm not even aware that there is a total. I cannot even think of the alternative, and I think that's where we stand. Most organizations stand there today. They're not in denial. They are not against beta. I think they're not consciously looking down on people. It's just that everything is normal, and they are trying the new normal. In Germany, we had this movement called New Work, which is basically, not sure if that's a thing anywhere.
Is this Aaron Dignan's thing, or is this something different?
No. That's he calls it Brave New Work, right? No, that's just his book. But here in Germany, we really had a movement. It's kind of fizzled out, but it was called New Work, suggesting, with all this home office stuff and COVID, different ways of working, better ways of working. But nothing has really happened. Even today, people, we discussed the whole hybrid working stuff as if it were a solution or a problem, which it isn't, I think. Yeah,
it's just a thing.
It's just it's just some deviation. It's like drinking Red Bull, flying, escaping the real problems, which is good. Escapism is a wonderful thing.
Drink your coffee, man.
Exactly. We drink coffee and some people even smoke marijuana, which is all fair and well. However, it will not transform the workplace. It will not make organizations democratic. It will not create conditions to survive in complexity organizations.
Yeah? And I think also part of this is, I think the agile movement as it happened, that it has done more harm than good in terms of self-organizing teams and self-organization. I think because there were a couple words that were put in one of the 12 principles in the Agile Manifesto about the best architectures and designs come from self-organized teams. And they think, we respond to change as opposed to following a plan. We don't have to plan, and we can work whatever way we want, however we want to work. So then somebody gets the bright idea that, okay, hey, we heard about this Agile thing. Let's do this Agile thing. You just be how you're going to be, and you don't have to plan. And then surprise, you don't produce anything, or you produce crap. And then the people who actually have discernment and can see what's going on can realize it's just this is insanity. And then so you have enough stories of people who have credibility and know what they're talking about, and again in the domain of software development, who are vehemently opposed to any mention of self-organization, that they believe that believe you me, I've encountered them. And again,
Sith.
But no, they're not Sith. They're good human beings who are very capable, and but just they've been burnt so many times by ridiculous fantasies of what someone thinks self-organizing teams are and what that means.
Yeah, but that's not self-organization, that's anarchy. And anarchy is a lovely thing for young people to think about, to dwell in.
But anarchy is not how you get someone to purchase something from you and continue to operate an operating business.
As a recipe for doing business, anarchy is a little too little. When I first heard of Scrum, I thought it's brilliant. It's software development without planning. That's brilliant, wonderful. It seemed very intuitive to me. This idea of iteration and cycling, short cycles, and so on. I thought it was just lovely, very straightforward. Because I as a controller and as a project management, somebody fairly interested in project management since my studies and so on. I thought it was a wonderful alternative to project management, the lunacy and the fallacies of project management and planning and so on. It was
a great way of risk mitigation. That's a great way of risk
Sure,
mitigation.
it's totally intuitive. However, it doesn't. There's so many problems that remain unsolved this year. If you do Scrum, there should long have been something. I mean, you have these conversations with a guy who developed something wider,
Al,
Amplio, I think.
Amplio, Al,
Yeah.
and
I
he is.
haven't looked
Yeah.
deep enough at it to say something profound about it, but it seems to be a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah, and again, Amplio. I mean, it is not a framework. It's a pattern language about observing what's happening in an organization and attempting to basically see for real what are the streams of value and organize appropriately. Of course, there's some assumptions about that has to happen in an alpha world. So the idea of decentralization doesn't even come into it yet.
I also always thought. Always thought that in Scrum, the hilarious thing about Scrum from day one, I think, was that it never had any economic consciousness built into it.
Oh yes, you are correct. Absolutely,
Right?
and that's a huge part.
I wonder how deaf, dumb, and blind do you have to be to not fix that in 20 years of Scrum? Because I think it's obvious that teams should also measure themselves economically somehow. There must there should be at least as an opt-in solution something about the economics of the software teams, right?
And it should not be this hoarding of information or I think offloading of information to the product owner. If it has to do with the finances in the business, it's the product owner, project management, all that. I just want to write software.
I have to correct myself a little bit. I just said something rather negative about Scrum seemingly, and I'm not trying to say that. Scrum is cool. I think we need Scrum Plus something. So the poster that you have behind you, stealth structure design, to me, that's Scrum Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at each. I mean, how many people are in those teams? About 7 or so, right?
Exactly. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those can be Scrum.
They cross?
I'm not against Scrum,
functionals?
but I have to say that very loud and clear here, not to be misunderstood. I have always been and will always be pro Scrum. I just think that Scrum needs to be. It needs to be complemented by something like self-structure design.
Well, it is a tool, and that's the question: is your tool fit for purpose? Are you using the right?
And for the purpose of a team functioning better than with waterfall, Scrum is wonderful. It's just that the reality of organization is a different one, right? Yeah. That there are interfaces with other teams, with other areas. If it's an alpha language. There is an economic side to software development too, and there is I think the interface to the market, it was never fully explained or outlined or solved. I think the PO role was always a workaround. The product owner role was always a workaround more than a solution. So there are many things that can complement Scrum and make it much more powerful than it is today to express it in a positive way.
And one of those things, of course, is a beta transformation for organizational support.
Sure.
Getting rid of fixed targets.
Yeah, I currently have a client, a software company they are undergoing a beta transformation. And one of the brilliant things that they came up with last week, they are moving towards OpenSpace 1 now. So OpenSpace 1 will be in mid-September.
Mm. So you're in theme crafting now, yes?
Yes, they are doing theme crafting for OpenSpace 1. Yes. You're right. Yeah, I think today 3 or 4 session proposals were posted. So and also they had a first work session on the self-structure design. And one of the things that they discovered is that, let's say they have around 20 software developers.
Yeah. I'm
simplifying a little bit. Let's say they have 20 software developers. Of course, one of the foundation basic ideas would be, okay, but they must be kind of in the center, right? If you have business cells selling the software and servicing or so, you would have software developers in the center. So the 20 people would be kind of
dispersed all the way through
in 3 or 4 central cells that would software factories, so to speak, that would work the software. And then they immediately in the first session already had this wonderful insight, I think, that part of the software developers should be part, maybe half of the software developers or so, should be part of the periphery and developing features in pairs or individually develop features. So like, again, simplifying a little bit, the platform development would be in the center, would be done by the by centers development cells or Scrum teams, but the feature development would be done in constellations, small constellations, in within teams of the periphery.
Well, because each of those peripheral teams has a market force driving it.
Exactly.
Right. And those are different market forces with different rhythms, with all sorts of different needs. So you need to have all. Okay.
And of course, sometimes these developers would hook up with other developers too. You know, one person from this cell and a developer from another cell, they could hook up and do some. We develop a feature together. One of the things that was discussed in the meeting that I was kind of flabbergasted, because I threw it like a hypothesis. I said, as a hypothesis, no serious software solution was ever developed by more than 2 people.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I actually read something.
And one of the software developers who was present, he says he's a great software developer. I cannot say. He just nodded and said, yeah, you don't need more than 1 or 2 people to develop software. Which indicates that even Scrum teams are, in a way, too big, maybe, to work, to function. They are not really teams. You do not need them as teams. You need 1 or 2 people doing features or doing development stuff, right?
Yeah.
Those are the constellations. The main constellation is 2 people working together in software development, I think. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
that doesn't mean that you cannot have another person then testing their shit out of the code, right? But a third person, I mean.
Yeah. Well, or you do
a 4th person involved who might be an architect or whatever. But ideally, you want to have all people being architects and testers and so on. So the basic notion should be 2 people is fine to develop software, usually
who have that high level of mastery. Right, so that
if they do not have the right level of mastery, they should practice, and the practicing cannot happen in larger constellations either. They still have to practice alone or in pairs.
Yes.
Right. So ultimately, one of the solutions that they can immediately, it was for me, it was very interesting because I'm struggling with this. I always like to say that firms, and here in Germany we have SAP, or you have Oracle in the United States. Or there are companies like
Salesforce or
software companies. They supposedly have hundreds and thousands of software developers. Do they? Or how many features are they working on? Because if 1,000 people work on 500 features at a given time, wonderful. Then that would add up.
Yeah.
Right?
Or maybe Spotify. Maybe Spotify is something like that. I don't know. But I get your
that
point.
insight is not. It may be old and banal in a way, but of course why are we discussing this? Because once we reflect upon the reality of value creation and work, like in this case software development, how it really works, then other structural solutions, decentralized solutions, become feasible. They get within reach, right? For example, to have not a software development department or area, but to have software developers pretty much everywhere. If you're a software company, to have software developers pretty much everywhere in your cell structure.
Well, and I think there's 2 things that come up for me. One is kind of a core principle. I was just reading this the other day, and I won't say there, but the design sequence of cell structure, right? That is first the sphere of activity, then the periphery, and then the center. Yes. So there's okay. So we talk about the how. Okay, so this is in one of the cell structure patterns papers, right? So this is not super secret knowledge, but it is. But to say, how do you do this? Well, focus. Say people are all capable of anything. They're not theory X, theory Y. Okay, so that's it. And you have to say, okay, so we're going to assume that decentralization is possible also.
Yes.
Right? So that I think is another how do we do decentralization? Right?
Yes.
How could we possibly, like exactly what you're saying, how could we possibly have a software organization that's not towered off into a shared services bit and in all these kinds of things that are monolithic. And so
Silos.
silos, exactly. Why do we have siloed, functionally divided silos instead of functionally integrated cells?
Yes.
That's another totally key concept.
And I think let's draw the connection. If you have that insight that all people are theory Y, that they're intrinsically motivated and capable of self-organization, self-steering, if the conditions are right, and if you cluster them into teams, and then there's another side conclusion would be, okay, teams should be small to be capable of self-organization and self-steering. So if we assume that we only have theory Y people, they should be clustered into self-steering, self-organizing, highly autonomous, highly functionally integrated mini enterprises, then decentralization is a logical conclusion to that, right?
That's logical, but that's not common.
No, it's not common. That's why we talk about this all the time.
Right. It's not common,
yes.
but it's right.
It's not common sense, sadly. So
common sense is not that common.
No, not at all.
But this also is the core piece. This brings in the two parts of fixed targets and individual incentivization.
Oh my God! Right? Do you want to put that in the mix too in today's conversation?
Well, but so maybe this is kind of the onion that you peel back in terms of okay, all right. If I have the insight, I cannot unsee the insight that people are theory Y, just carte blanche, and that the markets are complex and require decentralization to make that happen. And so, okay, well, how do we steer all these people at the same time? You can't do it from the top. And so how do these cells decide what to do if I'm not telling them?
Yes.
Right. If I don't have an OKR and this 3-step path for them to follow, how will they know what to do?
Yes.
Right. So this, and you mentioned self-steering versus top-down steering.
Yes.
And that is such a huge hang up for folks that there's a lack of trust from upper management or folks who are in control in a command and control organization. I don't trust you cogs in the wheel down there that they're the bottom to be able to engage with the market and steer based on, again, yes, I know I'm opening up a big old can of stuff. Again, we've talked about it in prior episodes, very early on, even relative targets we talked about.
Yes.
But this is the concept of, oh my gosh, we don't have goals. Well, how do we measure progress? So all of those things, and I think this gets us back to the very beginning of the episode. Maybe this is time for us to say there's a part 2 beyond this, or 3 or 4, whatever. That belief in the capacity and capability of individuals to gather together in small groups and make decisions and control their destiny themselves as a unit with high social density.
Yes, and there shall be measures for all teams. We call that relative targets. Profit and loss statement for every team. Relative targets. You show the concept overview over there. www.relativetargets.com. That's the website.
Then I need to have
www.relativetargets.com. That's where you can find all the details. And this is just like, again, self-structure design is a way to the org design concept, so to speak, and relative targets is the flip side of how to apply performance systems to that kind of structure. So this is the structure and the performance systems side, and they are two sides of the same coin. And how to get there? Open space beta. That's the third big solution. That we always talk about.
Yeah, and the word that comes to mind, we're not talking about frameworks, we're not talking about all this stuff, but we're really talking, and then if it's an approach, it's a way of what approach am I going to use to intervene with this problem? So I think
really
that
not concepts that you implement; they are ways of becoming beta.
Yeah.
And they are let's say, not applications of beta, that's the wrong framing as well. They are ways to approach beta thinking from an organizational development side towards organizational design questions and performance system questions.
Growing the seeds of beta. Sowing the seeds of beta.
Yes, that doesn't rhyme. That doesn't fit.
But sowing the seeds of love doesn't
That's a
rhyme
wonderful
either.
song. Yeah.
Well,
That
maybe
truly changed my life. When that came out, I was flabbergasted. So
yeah, great tune.
I love that song. The whole album, Tears for Fears. What's the name of the album?
Sowing the seeds of love. The seeds of love is the name of the album.
The Seeds of Love. Yeah.
Great
Is it?
tune.
Is it
Great
the
album.
album title?
Yeah.
Not
Well,
quite sure.
oh
Yeah.
crap! Now you're gonna make me look for it. Jesus Christ.
I'm not quite sure about that album title now.
No.
That was a wonderful album, and I love the video as well. I loved everything about the album. Yeah. Tears for Fears, anyway, it's fantastic. Sadly, I do not think that their last album was fully fantastic. Half of that was fantastic. The other half, I'm still struggling with part of the album. The latest one, Tears for Fears. Yeah. What was
yes,
the album?
I'm looking for the album.
For the album title? Was it Seeds of Love? I
I
remember Songs of the Big Chair. That was the second
Songs
album.
of the Big Chair. That was right. Background, blah blah blah. Music release. Damn it! I can't believe I'm looking at the
Is the
song,
internet broken somehow?
No, I ended up looking at the song, not the album. Oh yeah, that is the third studio album called The Seeds of Love. I was right the first time.
Sorry, I didn't quite.
Okay. So we are children of the 80s. That's not well. I don't think anyone's surprised by that.
That's a 1990 album, I think.
Oh yeah, well, now in the year of my graduation, I'm not August 1989.
1989? Oh, I didn't. 89. I wasn't aware. Oh yeah, my graduation was 1990. I thought it was 1990, 1991. Okay. Oh, it was still an 80s album.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, and then of course the title of our episode here today, from one of my favorite albums of all time, 90125 by Yes. It Can Happen.
It Can Happen. Yes, you even put the lyrics on the YouTube.
Yes, I did. I couldn't help myself.
It can happen to you. It can happen to me. It can happen to everyone eventually.
That's right. As you happen to say, it can happen today. As it happens in every way.
So, that's a wonderful song. By Yes. I will not put
that because yes.
Also, one of my favorite bands, by the way. My favorite prog rock band, definitely. Too.
Do you have? Well, again, for me, I enjoy each album in a different time in a different way. So even the ones that folks don't care, like, do you have an album that you go back to most often of Yes, that you listen to most often?
Of Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. It is sadly, I must say, I'm not a 70s Yes fan. I'm an 80s and later Yes fan. So yeah, that album
90125
and the two albums that followed, I do not remember.
Big Generator.
I loved that. Yes.
Yeah, and Talk was one, I think, after that.
Talk, I think, was the next. I prefer those three albums, and I know many people will say, "It's just understand shit." I get that. I just love the sound, the production, the style of those albums. I understand that the other that works the more is it let's say maybe eclectic works have their charm.
Close to the Edge, Relay, or the Gates of Delirium. I mean, I can yeah, I'm a Yes geek. Okay, fine.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Well, I think now it's pretty obvious that we have delved into our personal connection over music, which I'm totally fine with.
Yes.
Is there anything on the how that you wished to bring forward that you have not yet brought into our space here?
Yeah, I'd love to mention one thing that is, and I did a post in our LinkedIn group today about this as well. I guess, how can I know what other people think about beta, right? I mean, when I founded this movement 16 years ago, I thought it was necessary. I still believe it's necessary, and I never cease to, put energy into this. However, I sense that others struggle with, appropriating beta thinking. They struggle with beta for whatever reason, or maybe they just think it's easier to make money with other stuff. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what people think, but one of the things that I would like to accentuate at this point of time is beta is totally feasible. I see my Argentinian colleagues who I only recently did a certification about open space beta with them. I qualified them. Wow, that sounds amazing, right? I did a course, a workshop for them, with them, only recently. When was that? In April or May? And now they are doing a transformation with a first full-fledged beta transformation with a client. And
I'm going to bring this post up because I thought it was a great post today.
Thank you. And I would like to just accentuate that and make it clear. Yeah, people can look at this, maybe have a screenshot and read it. They have, to be fair, those colleagues in Argentina, they have learned about open space beta before. They had learned the books, of course, when I did the qualification with them. They had, let's say, studied beta for maybe 2 years or so. Some of them very thoroughly, some a little bit less, but this was not their first contact with beta. Yeah, so they had been hooked maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Still, I find it notable, that these colleagues started to approach the market some time ago more seriously about beta, and now they have a client, just as Silke and I are working with clients continuously. We have clients doing beta transformation, and as it takes half a year, we can easily do 2 client transformations a year. We could do a few more, maybe, if
even supervised.
And of course, yeah, and supervising, we can help a lot more companies. Exactly. So people, nobody's alone in doing this. You can partner with Ryan, with you, Ryan, with myself, with those colleagues in Argentina. We don't have to do this alone. Nobody has to do this alone. Figure it all out for yourself. We can hook up. The approaches are there. We have experience with them. We have different capabilities and interests. Like Ryan, your interest in open space is very well known, and in the agile software development side of things is well known. I'm a geek in lean as well, among other things. Our colleagues in Argentina have other inclinations and specializations in these areas. So we have different capabilities and specializations. Silke, of course, has still other specializations.
We don't have enough time in the episode for that
to discuss Silke's mastery. It would explode the session.
Yeah.
So we have different skill sets within our group. We have the methods, we have the understanding, we have the learning materials. I see that now unfolding with our colleagues in Argentina, that they are using the available book in Spanish, but they are now translating the open space beta book into Spanish. So these learning materials are extremely important to kick off the process, to start the process, especially in the first 60 days, before the open space 1. So we have the learning materials, and we are still building more, creating more, translating, and so on, and launching myself at work, and all these stuff comes to play. We have people, that can help each other. We can collaborate, support each other, supervise each other. We certainly have the experience of having done it. So everybody can rely that this is feasible. We also know that it doesn't require lots of consultants. So any organization, any consultant can do it without too much external help. Companies can do it without too much external help. Those are important factors, I think. And this is the most important. It's worth it.
Absolutely, it's worth it. And if you should happen to need any assistance as a guide through the process, please reach out to either of us. There are many ways to go through that. I am crafting an offer now immediately. I will share with you after the session today about getting a cohort together and going through the materials to do what we're talking about today.
Yes, which is a learning format as well that you're crafting, right?
Is a learning format. Again, it's similar to the masterclass that you do. I would like to take it over a period of time, almost as an open space beta way that we would do it. Bring 5 or 10 people together, go through, find out where the group is in terms of knowledge and willingness, and then we'll go through whether we need to start off at Douglas McGregor, to make sure that we're all there, whether we're talking about alpha versus beta, whether we are talking about complexity, whether we are talking about relative targets, or whether we're going deep. Again, this world is a giant world. And you know very well from our interactions, it's taken me a long time to get here, to be able to talk about this, to be able to be in confidence to go in public and talk with you about it. And I wish to help others do that as well. So in support of that effort.
This was a lovely conversation. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
See you again
All right.
next week or the other week. We will see.
Yes. And next week, next episode is the big 50, that we are turning 50 weeks old. A little more than a year.
Or something like that. We have to come
The
up with a name for that still.
Golden episode. Well, if any of you happen to see this at this point in time, whenever you see this, whatever now is for you, give us an episode title. We'll be happy
for the time being, we might call it like ABBA Gold. But I think that was an album. We couldn't call it Beta Gold.
Beta Gold. The Golden Path.
That has no content.
That's another Dune thing. It's kind of rather. The tyrant has the Golden Path. It says everyone in the universe along the Golden Path, but we won't do that. We'll send you along the Beta Path. So, all right. I shall see you in the penalty box. I will join you there. And for those of you out there, good now. Have a wonderful moment now and in the future. And thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. Be more beta.